I was looking up your account, and yeah, like, so on your secret account, we won't say the username yet, the one that we talked about with Facebook, you played like thousands of games, like you said. But even on the other one, you're almost 1,400 rapid, about 1,200 blitz. I think the fact that you played a lot of bullet is going to be a bit of an edge for you in this event, because I think a lot of players are not that experienced and comfortable in time pressure. So if the games are close, that's interesting to know how many you played, and I think that that's an edge in your favor.
Yeah, so, let's hope so. We'll see. As I said, like I think one of the interesting things for me when I got the chess coach is I actually got worse for a while, right? Because I played, a certain style of chess, like pretty aggressive, and he's like,
I make people worse when I coach them too, so it's okay.
But I think like the first kind of month and a half, 2 months, I was going backwards, and then I kind of clicked, and I was like, all right, I've got this.
Right.
Especially bullet, right? Like you need to just have your line that you're going to play and just play it out, and not really care what the other guy does so much, right? In the opening. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what your take on my gameplay is.
So let me do a little bit of probing here first. So I'm just going to play white, and we're on the lesson with Kain 1. In fact, if the team can maybe throw the link to the users in Twitch chat, Twitch Chess and Daniel Rensch, we'll dive in. So E4, what's your system here?
So I would usually play.
Okay, so just traditional king pawn, good stuff.
I actually need to work out how to flip the board here because I'm playing.
Okay, so if you a lot of people don't use analysis boards, and when you play, it automatically flips the board for you. If you hold your mouse in the upper right corner where there's like a settings cog, there's a little flip button on bottom. The third button down is a flip board.
Don't see it.
If you hold your mouse over the settings cog next to the board by the H8 squared, there's a third option down that's a flip board.
Oh, sorry, I was too compressed. It wasn't showing up there.
Cool.
Because it's split screen. Okay. Yeah, cool. That's better. All right, sweet.
All right, cool. So you're playing the Philidor here with D6, and this is what you play pretty traditionally, right? Like you play this consistently.
Yeah, that'll be my response most of the time. Yeah.
I just realized I can pull up all of your games here on chess.com, and I'm going to do that. Sorry, but I'm going to do it anyway, just to see, like you said, what you're playing these days. Okay, so like if a user plays like D4, where are we going here?
You got that? D5?
I don't see anything after white played D4.
Huh. Oh, sorry. I'm in lesson with Kain 2 now for some reason. All right, let me flip back. There we go. All right, sorry, my bad.
You're good.
I was playing the other game over there.
You're good,
man. Okay. I would.
Okay, so the openings. Go ahead and keep playing black, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Okay. And actually, this could get, so this is, we're gonna start right here on some opening stuff. I'm gonna play a fun trap just so you can see it. I'm gonna take your pawn with my knight.
Okay.
And let you do what you would do. And then I've got this trap with bishop f7, where when you take it with your king, I'm gonna win your queen over here.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Let's back up. I'm gonna back up at the beginning here. So and remember, like, this is your show, so any questions you want or anything like that. But my job obviously is the chess coach. Is I'm gonna try to give you the advice that, especially when it comes to openings, like real talk, I'm always afraid to just tell someone to play a new opening, because it comes with a huge commitment, and if you're not gonna dive in, there's a chance that even though the opening I'm recommending is much better, that if you don't get the experience, the results get worse, right? That said, in this particular case, the Philidor, so when white comes out and attacks this pawn, the Philidor is what you did with D6. This is a totally fine move to defend the center, but typically if we can defend the center with the knight, this is typically the more active move to play. So have you ever played this move? Is there a reason you don't like it?
the reason I probably don't like it is oftentimes I'll kind of play the mirror of the white, especially in bullet, right? Like the white opening that I would play would be like the variations on the London system. So like using like bishops like quite a bit, like moving out that white bishop, etc. So I'll oftentimes play, I mean, obviously you just destroyed that, but you know, I'll play like a kind of almost inverse of that opening.
Okay, so show me. We'll stay on this one here. Show me what you would do with white here.
So.
Okay, and then if I do something just to see. Got it. Okay, so you play like a London kind of collie sort of thing.
Yeah, London collie.
Yeah, I see. And then in a lot of these positions, you'll play the move C3 at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Makes total sense and great context. And actually, I'll say that on a high level, that's actually something I do and recommend to a lot of students and a lot of people do, which is that the idea, thank you, Thirsty Monster, for the raid. Appreciate you, buddy. And welcome everybody to some CryptoChamps and some high-level chess coaching here. The getting a structure you're familiar with both sides is a super big advantage, right? Because the tactics are similar. You're familiar with where the pieces should go. The development schemes tend to work. But there is a big difference in, and we'll just bring up the structure here. The major difference between this, let's say, we'll just snapshot this pawn structure with the pawn on d4, right? And we'll say this is that the king pawn leading the way does not receive the same support from the queen as the queen pawn does, right? Like just quite literally, right? That the king doesn't move like the queen. And so when you have a collie London system, you actually have a position where the space is supported by your most powerful pieces. And that's one of the flexible advantages of it. In an E4 game, if D6 is fine. So we'll go with D6. Let's forget knight C6. But after D4, this is actually already a potentially very big mistake because this is actually not a symmetrical structure. More similar to symmetry would actually be C6, D5, and E6 if we're comparing it to, say the London collie. And the big reason is that the king pawn is not receiving the same support. And in order to support it, you have to weaken your unarguably the weakest area of the board, which is the light squares around the king side, right? They always say the weakest square on the board to start every chess game is the square F7 and F2, because those are the squares that are only defended by the king. But more appropriately, the squares around the king side, especially the light squares for black and the dark squares for white, are your weakest potential squares should someone be aggressive. And so what I'm saying is like this position is already very dangerous for you because of my bishop on this diagonal. So what I would say is in this position here, we have to do something different than F6. This is a position where even if we're not going to play the main line, we have to handle the pawn differently than pushing here because of the weaknesses it creates. Is that fair? Are you following me here?
Yep, totally makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And don't worry, this is not going to be overwhelming. Once we commit to it, my goal is like, all right, new plan, and every bullet, every blitz game from here till then, that's the experience you're getting, right? Wrapping that under your belt.
Yep. And I can play a lot of bullet games. So
okay, great. We love that.
Yeah.
So two ways to handle this. You can defend it with knight c6. And now that I've kind of clarified the difference between the king pawn and the queen pawn, maybe you're more open to that because you see it's not exactly the traditional collie that you were talking about. So we can't exactly get that. But also I would say that just taking the pawn is fine. And as long as we have a plan from here, you're going to be in an okay middle game. So after takes and white takes, your next few moves are focused on developing the king side before anything else. So something like knight f6 to attack the pawn. Knight to c3 would be typical. And the main line for black in a lot of these lines is actually just a very simple bishop e7 to get castle. And you have two good plans in the center. Let me make a move just to show it. So let's say we get this. Two good plans. One is the move c6, which does two things. It supports the idea of d5 to kind of, I guess, counter white's better pawn here. but it also supports the move b5, which launches space on the queen side. And if you can undermine that, it might actually help your sort of pressure on the center.
Yep.
C6 is a very solid move, and this idea of playing on the queen side as well as potentially striking in the center is good stuff. The other really aggressive way you can play is sort of risky, but I'll explain the pros, is to play the move C. So why are we moving pawns here instead of pieces? Let me take a bigger step back. Let me ask you, like, why am I focused on moving this pawn before maybe developing out this knight or this bishop here, if you look at the board?
My assumption is that we're trying to undermine this center position that White's got. So creating some space there.
100%. And sorry, my headphone cord is the most obnoxious thing on the planet. The other option is this: if I asked you what are the good squares to put these pieces on, because this knight is so strong here, you kind of see the issue a little bit.
There's not much, yeah.
And in fact, if we go like process of elimination, we're getting a little specific to this opening, but it's actually really important because it shows that my suggestion here is not just kind of a random whim. There's a reason it's developed as the most popular move for black in the position, because if you can't put the bishop literally here, 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 and if you go here, I'll take it. If you go to d7, it's an option, but it's sort of a passive move, and it maybe takes away the future square for the knight. So we don't know if we want to do that yet. If we develop the knight to c6 or a6, both moves can be captured and double your pawns. And if you move the knight to d7, you actually block the bishop from guarding f5, and White can win the bishop pair with knight f5. And this bishop is, while kind of passive, is also sort of valuable. So that's an idea we maybe don't want to allow. And so you kind of, by process of elimination, come to a plan of moving the pawn to expand and undermine the center, as you said, because these pieces kind of don't know where they want to go yet. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Totally. Yep.
All right. Because this is going to prove to be a critical thing, and this is, I'm really glad we got into this kind of an accident, our first lesson, but I'm glad, and I don't mean to be like, I'm really glad I figured out one of your weaknesses, but I'm really glad I figured out one of your weaknesses right away. Like, you know, with D6, because this is going to help us a lot. I want to back up and have you play the moves for black that I just kind of showed. We'll do this a few times to make sure you're remembering it. Before we go any further, because if we're playing in a tournament, here's what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. A bunch of people are going to be taking chess lessons. It's possible that people are going to be knowing your openings, looking at your games. And even if people aren't doing that, just the general approach people are going to be taking to getting better, you know, fixing a potential weakness in our opening repertoire early, so all of our practice takes on a higher level of value, super huge, right? So now we're really getting the most out of our time because, you know, like you said, you're busy running a crypto company, and you're not going to be, you know, doing probably a ton of chess maybe after the event. So, all right, go ahead and play black. All right, sorry, got a little distracted there. Okay, knight f3. Nice. Very nice. By the way, what time is it in Australia right now?
It's about 9 in the morning.
Oh, okay, that's not too early.
Yeah,
I was worried you were.
No, it's not too bad. Not too bad.
I've had meetings with people in Australia where, yeah, the time zone can get a little awkward. Okay, great.
Now, I'd be usually inclined to play c5 here.
Dude, so glad you said that, because I just showed you c6 and talked about it. I went off on my tangent of why we're not developing the bishop and knight, and forgot to say this is the second move. Now, here's the risk of it. So this is the potential downside. c5 attacks the knight, so I move it to a square, let's say. And now, what would you play next, just naturally?
I'd probably promote the knight here.
Go for it. So this is an absolute option. It is actually kind of a common idea in some of these Philidors, but the downside of this plan is what you've created in the center by putting your pawns here is leaving the D5 square behind.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas a strong player would take on here is doing everything I can to not just maybe put a piece on this square, but to also put pressure on the D6 pawn, who can be potentially backward, because there's no way for you to advance this pawn without me winning it. At least not right now, right? You need some moves. You have to, you know, you have to get the bishop out and the queen out, maybe the rook. So this is okay. And there's actually one particular line where this is exactly what you should do, and I'm going to show you that. But even in the main line, I'm not going to get too critical. This is not super critical right now. In fact, if you played C5 or C6, I'd actually like you to try both over the. I think you should try both and see how the positions go. And so go ahead and keep, play another natural move here, whatever you would play.
What do I play here?
Very good. I think it's a great move. And you've now not only protected this, but potentially prepared to play D5, although probably not right away, because I could take here first and then take. But a very good and natural developing move.
No, sorry. That's
awesome. B5 is a good idea, but we have to support it first, right?
It's not supported, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great move, A6 and B5. And this is a plan that is exactly what you should do when you have a pawn structure facing one side of the board. You should look to advance there. So you're a natural. One of the things I always used to do with young students is give them odd pawn structure positions and ask them to find the best plan, like if this was a pawn, and see if they naturally figured out how to play on this side of the board instead of against the flow of the river where it's hard to bring pieces. So A6 is a good move. Like if you had a bunch of moves in a row, you could play B5 and put a rook here, bring the queen up, bring the other rook over, right? And playing in the direction of your pawns where your pieces are helping the space advances is always good.
Yep.
One of the issues here is that if white plays like rook to D1 and hits the D6 pawn, I'm now efficiently threatening to take, because if you take with the pawn, you've doubled your pawns.
Yep.
And if you take with the bishop, I'm going to win this.
Yeah.
So I really like A6. I think that in general, that's the plan, but probably the best move first is something like queen to D7 so that you can meet a move like this with rook to D8. So you've got the protection you need. And now if I take here, what can you do?
I would just take this.
Exactly. Just take right back.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That
Awesome.
D6 when you go to protect. Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool. So this is super good and a super good plan to start. And let's back up and do this line again so I can kind of show you where you might play C6 differently. I'll let you play black again. This is sort of opening testing. It's making sure that your memory is following everything and all that stuff. Shout out to everyone who's watching. We're both live on the chess channel as well as /Daniel Rensch. So I see Bobby Blunders and Horse Lord over on chess, and we see Bigfoot and some of the crew over on /Daniel Rensch. Thanks everybody for being here. So we'll go D4 again. Cool. So one of the lines white has, I played bishop up to get castled short, was just kind of showing you like one way white can develop. Yep. Another way white can play is to develop the queen side first, bishop out. Let's say you get castled again.
Yep.
And now I can play queen d2 with the idea that I might even be castling long. So in this particular line, often here, white is looking to get, or black is looking to get a little bit more aggressive in the center because of the idea of them casting long and going for an attack. So one of the moves in this line actually is c5. And the idea is you try to play aggressively in the center. If they were to, let's say, take everything, you'd be opening up and winning your material back before they get castled. This could be very good for you. There's also the idea that if they're going to castle long, but they don't have the rook on the file yet, that you can play the move d5. And d5 is seen best if they take everything here with the queen and get castled long. Now you've actually, this a2 pawn is actually hanging in a lot of positions, so they can't do it. And so if they can't castle long and the position is opened up, it can get a little bit tricky. There's a lot of theory going on here. There's actually moves like knight to b5 where white is trying to go for the fork, but can get in some trouble with the king in the center. We're not going to go into it. But the reason I'm trying to show you some philosophical kind of things that might happen in the position, because sometimes it's just about chess is huge, right? Chess is literally billions of possibilities, right? And when you're in the context of like a coach trying to give you sort of a map, I know you're going to step into some positions where you're lost in the woods, right? You're like, oh my God, what's going on here? There's a million trees, a million forests, that doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of trees in the forest, and you just need a map, right? A little bit of guidance. And the basic idea here, we've established one good thing. We're no longer playing f6 as we were doing and getting ourselves in trouble. We've got a very playable position in the Philidor defense. And I would advise that this main idea I showed of playing for c6 and b5, while a little bit slower, is actually probably the most solid idea when they castle short. But if they're going to castle long, one of the cues, all you need in the map sometimes is like a warning sign, like a symbol, right? Like a something to draw your attention. If they develop this piece first, that is a cue that they might be going for queen side instead of king side, right? And so even though you still castle, you're not going to remember all the theory of these moves. But what I'm saying is the philosophical idea now changes, that you need to be in more of a rush to open the center or to launch an attack, because you don't just want to sit tight if they're going to castle long and try to checkmate you. So again, c5 is actually, or even in this position, you can also consider moves like a6 first and then c5 to stop moves like knight to b5. And the point is, like, some of these positions can get really wild where you're not as worried about the pawn being lost, because your whole goal in this position is to attack on this side of the board. Like, you're going to develop, you're going to put your rooks here, and everything in a position like this is about who gets to the king first. The d6 pawn is not that big of a deal that you lost it. So I'm clarifying, right? What was the whole thing about c5 and the risk? The whole thing about this move is that it leaves this guy weak. But in a position where the king is on the opposite side of the board, not only is it an idea, it might even be the better move in a lot of positions, because you need to be aggressive over there. So am I going too fast? You follow?
No, that's good. So one question that I have is, like, what is the plan for white if you continue to go slow? Like, they're gonna come down and put pressure on the H file, or like, what's
the okay, good call. So
like,
let's say
like try and clear out the board, but if I don't and I continue to kind of play slow and I play six or something like that, like, what's the...
So typically they actually will start with a move like f3 first, because it supports the center and they're not worried about b4 anymore, kicking the knight's protection. And their plan, if you continue to go slow, would be things like g4 and then h4. And if something like this happens, it is a race. So don't get me wrong, that, like, you can theoretically win the race in some of these cases, especially if someone is inaccurate. I might even, instead of h5, play bishop d3 first, so that if you kick me, I can go here and I'm not blocking my bishop here. One of the general concepts here is that white's attack tends to have a little bit more potential than your attack, and that it's that usually white's like final punch, even both sides deliver the punch. It's like white's punch comes with a little more firepower in a lot of these attacking structures. And it's not that you can't play this way, but if I was to keep making moves, a lot of the way I would feel about it is eventually Black's attack can kind of dry up, whereas White's attack tends to have a little bit more firepower with the queen and bishop hanging this way. You don't have the same thing in terms of the immediate coordination. White typically has the F5 square in this structure. Often Black actually lacks a launching pad, if you will, for a piece to enter the king side. F5 is inherently open in this structure. Why? Because from the very beginning, you played a Philidor, which was, with E5 and D6, which is not a problem. But the way high level plans are built is like everything is about taking advantage of weaknesses our opponent can't take back. So even though we win pieces in chess when our opponents blunder, and those are bigger than pawns, high level plans are built around squares, diagonals, files, and pawn weaknesses, because those are the things that once created, you can never undo, right? So that's what the terminology of positional chess means. So what it is about this attack is that typically White has a little bit more firepower because of the positional things that are inherent to this pawn structure, with the pawn on E4 versus the pawn on D6. So I'm being a little bit sort of high level, but hopefully that explains why.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. That's helpful.
Okay. Why you want to be aggressive. Okay, cool. Glad that helps. Okay, cool. So one of the fun things that'll do, and this will be whether we get a chance to work together or not, or we can stay in touch on, I chat with some of the players via Twitter DM, or we can email, but anywhere for you that works, you can send me games, and no matter what, from here until the tournament, I'll be able to give advice. If you start playing the Philidor a little more accurately and regularly, you'll be like, hey, Danny, I got to move 7 in this line, and then they played this move. What was that? What's the deal here, right? And that gives us a bit of a line of communication and goal to shoot for.
Okay.
I can keep going on the Philidor here, but I also kind of want to do the same and probe your other openings, if that's okay, because already there's a lot more to go, but already, just if you do this, and just if you remember to play knight f6 and get this sort of thing, you're already going to be getting positions that are, that are great, and that'll give us some material to look at and improve, right?
Okay, cool.
So go ahead and, okay, one more line I want to show, that they can, instead of d4, they can also play bishop to c4 instead. In this line.
Sorry, just one sec. I'm just going to plug in. I just realized.
Yeah, go for it. Plug in, baby. What's up, chat? Chess Pawn 01. I see you and hanging on Twitch chat. I'm not going to read some of the other usernames in terms, because I tend to read usernames and say inappropriate things on camera. Head over to the chess channel. There is no age command, and am hungry. Elo, age. Are we supposed to have Elo and age command? Do you want to know how old we are? That's ridiculous. Odd normal. Who's Kain Warwick? He is the founder of Synthetics, which is a cryptocurrency company that allows their members to acquire holdings and have holdings of different cryptocurrencies, from Bitcoin to Ethereum to whatever. And I explained it kind of like options with stocks. So here's me being a salesman for Kain's company he never asked for. Anyway, I'm just chatting with chat while you went and plugged in your computer.
Awesome, thank you.
So real quick, back to the chessboard here.
Yep.
We've got bishop to c4. This is one other move, especially maybe some members, because you guys are all closely going to be in the same rough level. And bishop c4 has one idea that maybe they're going to try to trick you, which is if you play knight f6 first, they might have knight to g5.
Yep.
And that's a bit of a problem, right?
Yep.
And you can't even do the typical idea we would stop the fried liver with d5 here, because, excuse me, Black's a little bit slower. I can take now, and something like this would allow, there's this crazy attacking line that we don't really want to go in for. So I'm going to give you a very simple move order, very simple fix. If bishop to c4 is played, instead of d4, where we just looked at all this, take, shake and bake with knight f6, just do the line I taught you, and we'll get some good experience. Yep. If they play bishop c4, just play bishop e7 first. Remember that. Don't forget that.
Okay.
This will stop knight g5. Now they'll make some random move, whatever, castles or d4, and you can play knight f6, because if they play knight g5 now, what can you play?
Now I could play d5, presumably. presumably.
You can play d5, but you still don't really want to do that if you're not out of the center. This is a very common trick in a fried liver. A fried liver is this. So when I say fried liver, kind of take a snapshot of what I'm doing here with my stupid knight and bishop attacking your weakest square on the board. And this is actually a very common tactic where they sacrifice it, and you obviously you have to take it because they're forking your queen and rook. You have no choice. And then they play this check, and they're going to win back their piece unless you run your king out. But then they keep attacking your piece, and there's some variations where you can get in a lot of trouble with your king in the center here. This is especially in rapid chess, like you don't want any part of this, right? So the move you can play now that you played bishop e7, because this move order stopped them, and then knight f6 is very simple. Now you're one extra move up, so you can just castle.
Got it.
And
some
some lower level players, as they're first learning the game, get worried about giving up a rook for a knight and bishop. But I can tell you that the minor pieces are much better than the rook, especially in a middle game where you're gonna bring everybody out. It's gonna feel like black is up 2 pieces, and these rooks won't be playing in the game for quite some time.
Yeah.
So this mathematically, both sides got 6 points, quote unquote, but at a high level, black would be very, very preferred here.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
All right, so we've knocked off one huge item on our list. You're ready to play the Philidor.
Yep.
You're going to play it with theoretical advice and intentions now. D4, we chop, we go for the lines we talked about. You can experiment with C6, with C5. I'm going to let you kind of find the way there and see some of the pros and cons and react, and maybe we'll have some things to talk about. Bishop to C4, just don't blunder knight G5, play bishop E7 first, and then knight F6 and get cackled, and all is well.
Awesome.
Cool?
Yep. Looks good.
Are you enjoying this, or is this just like,
yeah,
oh
no,
my
this
God,
is good. No, this is good. This is me.
Okay.
Focusing.
I always ask that because,
No. I'm just processing.
Cool.
Right now.
Cool. All right, cool. So against E4, this is going to be super helpful and give us a map in the Philidor. What are you playing against D4?
I would play D5.
Okay, great. Let's say I play the Queen's Gambit. How's that gonna go for us?
You see that move or no?
Sorry, my team was telling me something on Slack and I was looking real quick and I didn't hear.
Oh, got it.
No, not your fault. I was distracted.
I wasn't sure if I was on the wrong board again.
That's a good question. Grav Talk in chat, and Kain might want to know that too. So I will back up and answer that in just a minute. He's asking a question about your Philidor, which could help. So, shout out to Benjamin Bach with the raid. Welcome everybody. We got 240 more people coming in. This is Kain Warwick. He's a CryptoChamps Grandmaster. Can I call you that? A CryptoChamps Grandmaster?
I feel like that's an insult to all grandmasters in the world, so maybe we should avoid that.
No, I think we're going to say you're a cryptocurrency, maybe an international master like me then. Cool. You're a cryptocurrency guy, and we're doing chess for getting ready for CryptoChamps coming up, and it's going to be epic. Okay, so is this what you always play against the Queen's Pawn? Like, I mean, in a good way. This is a good. I'm just trying to make sure that if you face, you're not just making it up against me right now.
In Blitz, yeah, 100%. That's what I would play. I play that most of the time. I might also play C6, but most of the time, yeah, like a C6 or like E6 every time, like almost every time, 95% of the time. You just look at my games and see that that's not true.
Okay,
I'm playing
that's good stuff. In general, that's great. The idea of the Queen's Gambit is precisely to kind of undermine the pawn in the center and try to get, two great healthy pawns, and you've lost your Queen's pawn. So the advice I give, a common mistake that is made, I'll just explain, is sometimes people defend the center with the knight first instead of the pawns. And this is a mistake because white can take it. And now, no matter how you take it, with the queen, they attack you and then get a big center.
Yeah.
Or with a knight, they just get a big center right away, right? They just attack you and they get a big center. So So E6 and C6 are both great. We don't need to spend too much time on this one. I think we're going to have a little bit less instruction or adjustments to make than we did in the Philidor. But let me make a few more moves and just test your knowledge a little bit. We've got some new viewers. If the team, if one of our mods or producer can maybe share a link to the analysis board, people can come join us on chess.com and follow along there if they want. We've got some people following the game, and you can come and join. Okay, bishop b4. I'm gonna play knight f3. See how this goes. Okay, good stuff. Let's make a move here. Awesome. There you go, everyone. You can follow the link if you want. I think that's Jason Sweeney I just saw come in as a chess.com user. What's up, Jason? Okay, knight c6. Cool stuff. And let me just see how you handle the middle game here. All right. Okay, spicy stuff. I like this. Getting aggressive here. Bishop a6. All right, let me take it. Okay, but I got this guy.
Yep.
So probably you needed to take here on e2 first with a tempo. You see that?
Yeah. Yep.
And then take back, and that would be okay. All right, let me back up a few moves. I'm going to have you play this again as black, the exact same line. So just go ahead and play black, and then I'm going to give a little bit. This is not nearly the level of adjustment that we made in the Philidor, which is great. This is super solid. I want to make one piece of advice, one kind of small adjustment. I will even say right here, I'll let you play what you play. Okay, actually good. You played a different move this time. It's funny. So the first time you had this, you remember what you played? You played this?
I played that, yeah.
And this is a fine move, but as we develop knowledge of more openings, a lot of the big mindset shift I often am like making with students is we start to think about where the pieces are developing, not just in terms of their most optically pleasing square, or not the square that just looks the most active, but the square that's most helpful for the overall goal of that particular pawn structure or plan or opening, right? And what's funny is even though this is an aggressive move, it is played by a lot of people as they're just learning, because they just figure, well, I might as well put the bishop on the most active square. When in reality, a lot of the times when this bishop comes out and pins your knight to the queen, because this knight is so valuable protecting the center, and that's kind of overall important to the structure, it's very common that the bishop is best on e7, even though this is less aggressive than d4. But unpinning the knight and just defending the king side to get castled, this is right here. Take a snapshot. This is like the most standard queen's gambit decline you'll ever see in the world. And this is probably the absolute best line for black to play. Just super solid, super equal. And so I would say that's probably best. The next thing I'll say is that even if your bishop was on b4, so regardless of that, when we get to this position here, you played the move knight to c6. And I want to take a snapshot of this position, right? This has been perfect so far to here, let's say. And one of the things we want to do now is think about how we're going to play in a position that is different than a king's pawn game. When the queen pawns are leading, there are all this potential firepower in the center because of the queens. White might even bring a queen out to the queen side and continue to put pressure. This rook's going to come to c1. And one of the things you often want as far as flexibility as black is the ability to play in the direction of your pawn chain, like I said previously, and play on this side of the board. And often, whether that pawn is going here to over support the center, or in some cases, the plan you played, which I liked with b6, to eventually even play c5, it's very often that the knight is not best blocking your c pawn.
Right.
And it's super hard because it's like you're, as it's hard to say like, wait, I'm criticizing a developing move, but I kind of am, right? Because in this particular position, it's the same as developing the bishop to here versus here. The knight on c6 is not bad, and against a lot of people, if they blunder a piece, it doesn't matter. But against a good plan, the knight is actually not ideal there. And a very common theme is we want our knights behind our pawns. So B6 is actually the Tartakower here. And this would be a great system for CryptoChamps. I would love if you played B6 in your games. And here's your plan. You're going to put the bishop here.
Yep.
On a super sexy diagonal right here. And then you're going to change your mind. Then you're going to change your mind in the center. And instead of leaving it here, now that you've gotten all that development and pressure on the center, you're going to change your mind and take here in the Tartakower to open up this beastly bishop.
Yep.
And then you're going to play the move C5 to undermine the center, which has been supported by B6. So that was a dual purpose move to get your bishop here and support C5.
Yep.
And in this position, you've got a very equal foot. White can't play E4 anymore because you waited long enough to develop before you took the pawn. You've actually got pressure on this knight, which in turn means you have better pressure on the center. And this knight might develop to a couple different squares. Yeah, maybe you get to C6. You might also go to D7, which supports the knight and supports C5. It's a very solid position for black. And the plan here is much bigger than just let me get my pieces off the back rank and then figure out what to do, which is kind of how knight C6 is for a lot of players. Like they don't know openings that well. It's understandable. Chess is really hard and a lot of knowledge. So they play moves like this, you know, to just get pieces off the back rank. But actually, when I took here and there were some tactics, your knight isn't ideal here. And even if you saw this tactic and took here, I bring my rook over and I'm attacking a vulnerable knight. If you maybe move that knight, maybe I bring a knight in here, and I've got like, this is not the most ideal position for you, and it's certainly not as good as one where our pieces were kind of coming together toward a common plan of like, you know, coordinated pressure against a single point. And the knight comes out, then your rook comes out to C8, and you're not dealing with the same kind of like not sure what your plan is in the middle game.
Yep, makes sense.
Is this cool?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And in fact, like with my with the chess coach that I was working with, like that was kind of, you know, using those the bishop there to kind of put pressure on the king side was one of the sort of overall plans that we were trying to develop, especially for like blitz.
Yep.
Just 'cause people can make a mistake and not see something. And
no, well said, 100%, and especially in blitz. And I think, you know, we're not trying to overdo the openings here because I saw a comment in chat just now about openings, and I tend to agree. I think sometimes players overly focus on openings in chess, just so you know, because it's something they can control and makes them feel kind of warm and cozy, and always makes it feel like you're making an adjustment. But in reality, most of these games are lost by what? Like time pressure in Blitz and Bullet, blundering your queen or some pieces, right? My main goal here, like we said, is we want to put you in a position where, while that's true about openings, one of the other mistakes that can be made if you're not at least playing a good opening is you develop a lot of experience and you develop a lot of habits in a position that frankly just has some objective problems, right? And then you're getting yourself in a bad spot and wondering why you've reached the ceiling, right? Or you're bouncing around with too many different openings. And then you're not actually getting those experience points, as to use the video game term. We're like, we talk about this a lot in chess commentary, is sometimes a young player who's super talented can perform better than they actually are if they play like the same type of system over and over again, because they're making up for lack of knowledge and experience in other areas by the fact that they're like a freaking super GM in this particular King's Indian defense or in this particular Queen's Gambit, right? So all we're trying to do here is be like, hey, from here until the tournament, you now have a map. Let's be consistent. Don't screw around, whether it's bullet or blitz. Get a bunch of games there so that now when you take the time to hit game report on chess.com and analyze your game, you're not just wasting your time looking for a blunder on move 29 of a position you're never going to freaking see again on move 29, right? If you make blundered in like move 10 or move 9 or move 8, that's actually a move you can immediately improve in your opening repertoire and build like a building block where all of a sudden you're getting deeper before you start making mistakes. So sometimes not enough effort is taken. I'm actually very not big on openings as a coach because I agree, like end games, tactics, positional chess, but you have to at least take the time so that you stop wasting your time. Take the time to get a map so that you're not wandering aimlessly, and then be consistent with that opening, even if you know, we obviously know there's other parts of chess to work on. So sorry for the bit of a tangent, but I wanted to guide you on that. That's what we're trying to do here.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, let's do this one more time. Let's make sure you've now memorized the Tartakower. Look at us. We've now given you 2 openings. You now play the Philidor and the Tartakower.
It's good.
Man, we get a lot done in these lessons. All right, go ahead. So I'm going to play white, and you go ahead and play the Tartakower. Cool. Cool. Awesome. So we're in a good Tartakower spot. Let's play a few moves and awesome. C5 is actually a very aggressive. The line we looked at was to take first.
Yep.
But this is pretty much just as good and very similar. The one funny option here is that if I take it, a lot of times here you end up wanting to take with the pawn, because if you take with the bishop, you kind of self-pin your knight to the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And what can happen here is then I'll take again, and what we end up getting is what's called a hanging pawn structure. Hanging pawns are some of the most dynamic chess you can get. I enjoy playing these positions for both sides because both sides can win, super double-edged. The pawns themselves are a huge asset in that they restrict and control the most critical area of the board.
Mm-hmm.
Black gets like 5 more moves. It's like knight out, queen out, put the rooks right behind these pawns, move the knight again, and just start using your space where you've got your bishops and your rooks and, super badass opportunities for your minor pieces. You got knight e4 and the knight on a5, can exert pressure on c4. The problem is that the other idea from White's perspective, White says, I'm going to trade every piece. So White tries to bring the queens and the rooks here and then offer a minor piece trade and offer another, maybe bishop for bishop trade. If those come off the board, now this guy's a little more weak, right? So the same strength you have is potentially your biggest long-term weaknesses, because if these pieces come off the board, who's going to defend the pawns? And against like the rooks or maybe 1 or 2 minor pieces left. So hanging pawns is a very fun, dynamic way to play chess. And you can you should play c5 in a lot of your games. If you're going to do that, you can also play knight b7 first and support c5 even a little more. The reason I kind of like taking and then c5 for you is because if they trade now, the fact that the d file has been opened, you can just go to like a very dead equal endgame where you trade queens, you double their pawns, you maybe take here, they double your pawns, but in the end, like it's literally Black has completely equalized the game. You're going to get out, and Black is in an end game. Some people don't like end games, but the position itself is very easy to play and very equal. So you see how just changing the move order there prevents them from maybe taking and giving you the hanging pawns. But again, that's totally up to you. Both things are totally good.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah,
cool.
And I mean that I think as someone who's played a lot of bullet, like you get into a lot of I feel pretty confident in my ability to play most of these people in an end game with 10+5 time control. Like
that's great.
I'm probably going to be okay. I've seen a lot of different end games, so I'm not as worried about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Let's see. Anything else to go over for now? I don't think so. You've got a plan with the Tartakower playing for c5 hanging pawns, or taking and playing c5 with the end game. Both are good.
Another move that I sometimes play here in this position would be the knight to e4.
That's also a very good move. That's a very good move. I love it. And it's actually also a very typical move in this structure. In fact, I'll show you where it's even more typical, because I didn't go over one sort of popular response for White, which is the moment you play b6, you're revealing your hand to a well-prepared player who knows their openings, and you're playing a Tartakower. You've committed this idea. One way that they react to that is now they take.
Right.
Rather than playing bishop up and eventually letting you take and open the bishop, right? They take you, and they say, well, the advantage is this. If you take with the pawn, I'll develop my bishop to d3 instead of e2, a little more active. And if you continue to commit to this Phi and Keto idea of the bishop here, I'm never gonna change the pawn structure, right? I'm gonna leave this here so that this pawn is forever blocking your bishop, right?
Yeah.
But what do you have? Well, you actually have the idea of knight e4 in a lot of those positions.
Yeah.
And that line in particular is when you might really want to use this idea, because the other thing that changed about the structure was what? They opened the E file when they took on d5. So we're like a heavyweight fighter, right? It's the footwork of taking advantage of every different adjustment you adjust back. So if they take here and you take, now you have a different structure, which is the E file is open, the knight e4 idea is there, and if bishop b7, knight bd7, knight e4 is on your agenda, the other knight can come to f6. So there's all kinds of plans. And again, exact theory can change as you learn the opening better. You learn all the even more subtle reasons of why exact move orders are what they are. But overall, what you just said about knight e4 is a very good plan, especially if they do these lines where they take on d5 and the e files become open.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Cool. Okay, cool. We're crushing it. Awesome. So I guess our last thing is to test what you just did, which is white. What's up, Zenith TV? Oh, let me answer the question from chat earlier. Someone asked, because I think this is useful for you. Sorry, what?
About the Philidor? There were
about the Philidor. Yeah, I'm trying to find his username. Sorry, buddy. His or her username. I don't know who you are, but thank you for being here. So what the question was so let's see. I'm sorry. It was in the Philidor with e4 and e5. Actually, you go ahead and play black, and we'll just give you another opportunity to practice.
All right.
So first thing we got to do is take. Otherwise, I'll take here.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's right. Yeah,
yeah. You're good. That's why we're practicing. It's good stuff.
That's right. Yeah, I was like,
Grov talk. There you are. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So the question was bishop. I'm going to go for the line with queenside castle. So bishop f4. You can castle here.
Yep.
Let's say they go for this. So now I'll get in a position like the user was kind of talking about. Let's say we do this and white, white gets here and g4 and knight and the big pawn storm and something like this. We'll start here. So this was I think that the question is how should black respond to such a pawn storm? And so it's a great question because it's actually indicative of why I suggested in this line, we probably go for d5 or c5 earlier, because typically the answer of what do you do in a position where you're losing the race, right? And I would say when I was always looking for catchphrases kids would remember when I was a real chess coach, I would say, if you're losing the race, then don't ever start it. Or I would say, like, if you're going to lose the game, then find a way to quit the game or change the game. And what I'm saying is, there's really two ways you would approach a position where you're gonna be beaten in the race. One is change the pawn structure. So by striking in a position where we make it less of a wing attack, right, a race position for both sides going on one side, we open up the board and create tactics in a way that doesn't allow someone to focus on just one singular pawn storm or plan. So that's the simplest answer is if you're going to lose the race, you want to change the center and change the position and open it up. If you wait too long and now you try to do things, they might be able to react in a way that isn't very helpful. You play d5 and they play e5, and you're still basically getting kind of kicked around, and their race is still probably better than yours. Whereas, as I said, if you just keep going, you may end up in a position where, okay, I was actually just making a mistake this whole time because white could take this pawn because I wasn't thinking concretely. I was just trying to get to the philosophical point. Is that at some point, I can even go here and trade. My point is, at some point, your pawn storm might just be slower than my pawn storm when push comes to shove, and I'm ahead in the attack. So part of those reasons are why I was saying that in these lines, in this warning sign, or let's say you've noticed they're doing something different, I would be looking to play c5 and a6 and b5 a little more aggressively, even ahead of developing the knight, even ahead of a lot of things. Or I would look to play d5. d5, remember, was a main move I suggested here, right? To try to open up the center immediately, because now when the center opened up, this is already a completely different position, right? This is a position where there's tactics, there's open files. They can try to castle long, but maybe there's consequences. It's also just not a position where someone can focus fully on a pawn storm at the neglect of everything else that's happening in the middle of the board. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. Totally.
So d5 is actually probably the best move. And what happens in this position if white plays e5 early is now there's a few things. One, you can actually play knight e4, and this trade also opens a position because you still have c5 coming. You could still try to get to an endgame, which would mean you're not in like a race attack position with checkmate on the line. You can also play the move knight h5, because they don't really have a great place to put this bishop when your next move is the move c5 and d4. So look, it's actually like you're getting everything you wanted in your other line, and you don't even have the weak d6 pawn, like c5 and d4, and you're actually in a really good spot getting all your pieces out very aggressively. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yep. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So I guess, yeah, that's why I was saying notice the early warning signs, because rather than go down the road of a losing race, and I'm not getting into all the exact theory, and I'm sure there were some specific things that, for those stronger players in chat, or, who might want to know about the overall details. But what I would answer, for both your advice and for Graph Talk is the reason why I was saying, like, look for opportunities to change the structure, open the center, launch your attack earlier before the race begins, is because sometimes in a position like that, it's very hard to react when you're already losing the race. And even if you played like a6 and c5, like I said, like if you get aggressive here and emphasize the attack, you're not so worried about what's going on in the center, because you're getting ahead of the game here, and you're trying to bring the attack to them before they're not even focused anymore on this. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay, cool. Grab Talk gives us the thumbs up. Good advice, so we can move on. All right, man. So now you're back to white. So what do you play as white is the question. Cool. So you play d4.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. I already know this. That's right. You play Kali. Okay, so I'm already in the mode of, I don't even know that I have much to say there. I think I want to quiz you a little bit on a couple of the concrete lines that might challenge. So let's say I play here. Okay, and so you don't even play the London, which is where the bishop comes out. You just go for this structure, bishop d3, knight f3. You're not looking to develop this bishop here.
No. So there's I can't remember what it's called, but there is a line. I didn't bring my chess computer, unfortunately. I made a mistake.
No, you're good.
But yeah, where go here and then open up so then you've got.
I'm just gonna play some moves, let you play white. So I'll just make some move here, see where this goes. Okay, so you're playing like some sort of B3 ready hybrid sort of system here.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. It's funny, now we're gonna get like another hanging pawn kind of position. Okay. Okay, I mean, so and what's your comfort level in this position? Like, how many times would you say you've reached something like this or very similar to it?
Like a lot.
Okay.
Like 20, like 30, 40, 50 games, something like that. Something similar to this style. This was a line that I was playing a lot. And I mean, there's obviously a lot of variations on it, and I'm not playing it that well. But yeah, essentially the idea is you're going to come in and sacrifice one of the bishops up here at some point, put some pressure, sacrifice
On the king side.
Yeah, and then come in using the F pawn and try and open that up, and yeah,
Okay,
that's kind of the idea.
Yeah. So and I'm glad you said that, because before I'm obviously familiar with those lines, but I didn't want to put you on that road if that's not what you were trying to do.
No, that's the idea. Is you're going to come in and aggressively sacrifice up here somewhere, and and try.
So what I would say is I would actually advise even being a little more aggressive for that. Like, if you already know the plan, like in a lot of these lines, you can commit F4 earlier and put the knight out behind the pawn rather than on E2.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
You can also do what you did, which is kind of a cool slow jam way. You play with this knight E2 idea. And if they do, let's say they do what I did with knight D7 castles, and you get instead of C4, you bring the other knight to D2. And then when you play F4, you can actually bring this knight to F3. So you've got both knights supporting actually the critical points in the center. And this is a great way to get attack, where again, your idea is what you said, you're going to take. You might even play knight on E5 or G5. You might bring your queen to E1 and over here somewhere, right? And so these ideas you're going for, this is sort of a Stonewall kind of ready hybrid. There's obviously like some of the most famous tactics in chess. We'll see if I can kind of recreate it. If you get like your knight to E5, and if you took, and there was something, there's positions like this where you would trade and then sacrifice once, and then check and then sacrifice again, right? Like, this is the very famous two bishop sacrifice, one of the most well-known kind of mating net ideas, and then you would try to like bring the rook up and attack. So okay, you're not going to get that in every game, but that's like the fantasy of playing this line, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is getting the some of the super crazy attacking ideas there. Okay, I'm totally good with this. I think that probably in another session, like maybe seeing some specific games you're playing, I could probably make some concrete improvements. Like, hey, like this move order is better, and here's why. I've already kind of said that I think I would emphasize F4 and knight out behind the pawn, whether here or whether with the earlier way I said, which would be playing F4 right away and then just knight F3. I think those are, if you seem like an attacking player, right? Can I say that?
100%.
I love it. I'm being teased by chat that was not a sound sacrifice. I was aware it didn't work there. I was just showing the two bishop fantasy. If the attacking ideas are what you long for, like that's what you want, I would say F4 is a more accurate move order.
Okay.
And now that I know that, the main line that would challenge you for that would be things that are a little more aggressive on the dark squares, things where they're, not even that, like E3. Things where they're trying to be aggressive right away might force you to play like C3 right before B3.
Yep, totally.
Which is totally fine. And I think you can still have your ideas of developing out, or even bishop D3 first. And in some of these lines, you can still go for F4 before knight F3. But I think the risk of that, remember, every pawn move you make that isn't a piece move is potentially something that could backfire, right? Because you're neglecting development, you're actually weakening your dark squares. So the kryptonite to the Stonewall, just so you know, I'll just say, is anytime someone's aware that the dark squares are the catalyst, the dark squares are where it all starts. So if they play like E5 here, and just they don't even care. Like, as long as it's bust open, they literally don't care how it happens, as long as it opens up, because you are left with all kinds of problems. And so against an aggressive C5 player and or someone who's showing the intention to play E5, I would actually advise you to play knight F3. Don't go all in for this stuff, and play a more solid. You can still play kind of like what I was saying. You can still play like knight d2 and castles, and eventually maybe try for e4 and e5 and try to get an attack over here. But this is not the same line where you can afford to play for f4. If I was to make it even more simple, I would say basically the stone wall is super effective against the d5 structure where they haven't played for d6 and e5. But if they don't play d5 and they play d6, maybe avoid going for f4 and just play the, play something that's a little bit more just solid in terms of developing and defend the center, kind of like this. Is that already kind of what you do a little bit?
Yeah, that would be a normal-ish response, right? Like, one of my big issues is obviously consistency, right? And like, knowing what the line's going to kind of play out like if based on their responses. So I wouldn't say that I'm consistently responding that way, but like that's obviously the intention is to try and change it up, be a little bit less aggressive,
right.
If that's their response, and just take a bit more time and don't come out firing completely.
Yeah, 100%. And you said it well, because one of the weaknesses of a system player is that they get too addicted to the idea of not just the bishop sack, but let's say they get addicted to a certain type of structure that just makes them feel really warm and gooey. Yeah. But then the opponent changes it up, and then they wonder why it doesn't work, right? So you have to. Yeah. The system can be super effective when it goes well, but be willing to adjust, right, when it's not going well. Yeah. Okay, cool, man. All right, so this opening probe, which is kind of the first part to get you on the path, was, I think, most critical in the Philidor stuff we went over. And then obviously the Tartakower advice against d4 is going to make your queen's pawn games a little bit better. So one of the things I like to do before we come to a close is maybe have you play a couple of games and I can kind of watch.
Okay.
Not necessarily give you advice in the middle of the game because that's slightly frowned upon. But I can follow. Maybe we'll talk a little bit, and you can talk out loud and kind of give me your thought process. If that helps us analyze it. But maybe have you play just a couple games, and then we'll give you some real-time feedback on the openings and see how it goes. So I'm actually going to follow you now instead of you being. You can keep the analysis boards up, but I'm going to follow you. And so go ahead and search. Just play like a 10-0 game, not even 10-5, but just 10-0 with no increment.
Yep.
And go for it when ready. I'm now following you, and I'll be able to see your game once it pops up. There it is. It's Danny337.
All right.
All right, I'll be right back while you're starting. I'm gonna go grab some water.
Yeah, cool.
And then I'll see where you've gotten to. So I'll be right back.
Okay, awesome.
right.
It's kind of, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a line like this. It's a bit.
Okay. That'll be cool. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Looks like you're doing okay. Just like you said, not exactly the position we were going for, but you're doing okay.
Yeah. Guess I'll get aggressive here and see what happens. No, it doesn't work.
I like how you manage your time. I'm just going to say that. It's a good practical advantage.
Interesting. That was okay. problem.
You're doing great, man. Don't nothing to say right now.
All right. I'm just a little wary here. I know what I want to do, but I'm not able to kind of get into it. Yeah. dumb. That's a huge blunder. That's the end of the game there. That's frustrating. Okay. That's weird. All right, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, that was a tough, tough finish.
I just blundered my way through that. Like I got too fixated on that check opportunity up there.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to make it happen and couldn't make it happen. So
well, let me bring you over to go over to the lesson with Kain 2 board. You know when you have that one up.
I can't see it.
Okay, I'll invite you to a new one then. Hold on.
Okay, cool. Sorry, yeah.
There you go. I'm gonna invite you to a new board where we can analyze this game. Okay, cool. Or I did invite you. Did you see it?
No, I don't see it.
Maybe your thing is to collapse.
Oh yeah, right.
Like
okay.
previously.
Yeah.
If you expand the collapse, maybe you can see lesson with Kain 2, or I'll invite you again.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, try and invite me one more time and see.
Okay.
Will it show up under messages, or where does it show up?
Usually it shows up on just like a pop-up, like a toaster on the lower right side.
All right, let me get out a split screen maybe and see if that's the issue.
Okay. Were you still in live chess when you were playing, or?
Oh no, maybe I wasn't. Maybe that's the issue.
Maybe you went over to play. We're actually in the middle of redoing this whole UI right now so that everything will be consolidated, but it's kind of
all right. I'm back in live.
There you are. Okay, so now you can probably see lesson with Kain too.
Yep, I can. Yep.
Okay, so I can move the pieces here. You following?
Yep, got it. Yep.
Okay. So what's funny is this is a weird move order, but he kind of did the thing that we said is the Achilles heel of this line, which is playing for E5, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the potential risks of not having the knight on F3. So frankly, if someone plays knight C6 on move 2, their intention is pretty clear.
Yeah.
And it's already time to play either F4 or knight F3. Because here's the funny thing. I recommended knight F3 just as an instinct to say like, hey, like knight F3 stops E5. But because your whole plan is based around this F4 plan, if you had played F4 here, this is exactly the kind of structure where you want the stonewall because they play D5, which means this square is particularly weak, right?
Yep.
They've actually put the knight on C6, which blocks C5, which is not very good for them.
Yep.
So F4 in any future game where you've got this, where you've got this D5 knight C6 setup, F4 is a fantastic move. This is exactly what you want to do. Yeah, then play knight F3, play bishop D3, C3 if you want, get castled. This is a great position.
Yeah.
So the main neglect here, or the main mistake, was you allowed E5, and now it's already going to be in a weird position.
Yeah.
Because there's no good solution here. In fact, the truth is Black is probably already a little bit better here. Now you recovered and you were definitely better in winning in this game, but Black is probably already a little bit better here just because you allowed E5 on move 3 instead of playing F4 or knight F3 to stop it.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was better. He played E4. You played bishop E5, and now you kind of adjusted. I mean, this is all totally fine for you. And he gets way overly aggressive with the move B4. Really, he should take advantage of the fact that he's got this nice pawn chain and your bishop is closed in. He should be playing like F5 and like knight here. He should be playing for a big center. Now look at this position, right? This is what he should be doing.
Yeah.
But he overextends with B4, and then you take advantage of it in a good way. Bishop D2, you played bishop A4. That was a very good move. Bishop D7, queen E2. He puts his rook back on A8, and the only thing I even more than the mistakes you made later on, where you struggled to kind of put the game away.
Yeah.
This is a move that's very risky to give up. You did it specifically so you could win the pawn, right? Yeah. But you also sacrifice this entire diagonal.
Yeah.
If I was in this position again, I would say that probably that's not in your interest to give the bishop with the knight. I would focus on getting developed on the king side to castle. I would even focus on, even here you could say the same thing, like knight E2 and get castles. I think you got a little bit overly aggressive with the queen side here, and it could have been very bad on the light squares.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. After this, like you played much better than your opponent. I mean, this was great. Like you developed, you took a second pawn. Really, you didn't make any mistakes again until we got to this position with D5, where you allowed bishop F6.
Yeah.
I jinxed you. I said, "Hey, I love how you're managing your time. You're playing."
I know,
great,
and I was like, "Oh, let me just see if I can blunder somehow." Yeah,
definitely. You should just. I mean, okay, what's going on? Let's take stock. You're up 2 pawns in the position, and what's the biggest weakness in your position currently?
I mean, probably the B4, his B4 pawn there being protected by the bishop just sitting in the middle. Yeah, there.
Yeah, so that's kind of irritating for you. I agree with that, and that actually keeps your A pawn weak. But I would say your biggest weakness at this point is probably just that your king is still in the center.
Right.
And so if I was in your shoes, I mean, you're up 2 pawns. Like, just develop the knight and get castle.
Yeah, I know. It was too cute. I thought it was a good idea to try and keep going. But yeah, you're right.
And so, the other way to look at that is like, hey, like we can focus on the tactical motif. They put a rook on the file with your queen. Anytime that happens, you have to be on high alert. Anytime a lesser valued piece is on the same file diagonal area of the queen, you got to watch out. But I would argue the bigger mindset mistake is no matter, yes, you got to notice the tactic, but your focus should be on whenever you're up material, your focus needs to be on just keeping the game simple, like trade pieces where possible, eliminate your own weaknesses. Don't ever try to get too cute when you're winning because you don't need to be cute. And so, yes, it was a specific blunder because of the tactics of the rook on the queen and the fact that, he saw it with bishop 6. But I'm trying to give you mindset advice, right? Because remember, you're not even going to reach this exact position again. The mindset advice is, look, it's not even that d5 particularly was too cute. It's that we want to learn and never be too cute when we're winning and up material. What's the advice? I like to say just keep it simple, which implies simplify where possible, trade if it's an even trade, and just eliminate your weaknesses. Because as long as your weaknesses leave the board, you're going to be great. But again, even after that, you again outplayed him. You were better. This was a great position with the bishop on the diagonal, and you took g7. You're probably already winning again. And he goes full nuts and sacrifices the rook for the pawns. I love it. And you traded.
This is where I just got frustrated because I could see, move bishop up to h8 and then, play the queen up there. And it's game over. And I just assumed that he wouldn't see, in a blitz game, he might not see that, right? They might not see that, but I think there was enough time for that to kind of be obvious that was a play. And I just, instead of just abandoning that and bringing the bishop back and starting to use it, it just sat there. So
yeah, or the other thing to do too is I love rook e1 because what did I just say about when we're winning? Keep it simple. And rook e1 offers a trade. I'm super happy to see it. But also, yes, you weren't wrong to recognize that the dark squares are a problem, right? So you could even play a move like bishop h8, which threatens queen g7, and this is kind of hard to stop.
Yeah, I guess I was worried that the next move is going to be rook e2, and then I guess I've got to back away from that. Yeah, maybe I just missed that. I don't know what the response to that would have been. I was waiting to play that move. That was the move I wanted to play. But I was too worried about this check down here. But I could have just backed away from that, right? And
yeah, you can move the king, and there's actually still, in fact, the best move is actually to play king here, because now his only way to stop checkmate, FYI, is pretty much to move the queen, and then you win the rook.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I just missed it. I was too, I got too caught up in that. I was like, all right, I'll give myself one more move. And then by the time I'd done that sacrifice there, it was kind of, and even then I still should have been able to get it. I just think
well, rook e1 was good. That's why I wasn't saying, I think what you were doing here was good, but and queen b2 was good. You were stopping queen e2. I think you were actually very aware of what was going on. And then now you made the mistake of king g3. I think that here, yet again, so put it this way, if we're keeping on the keep it simple approach, what that means is when we're winning, we trade pieces and we eliminate threats. If there was one, set of pieces to take off the board for you and your opponent, what is it?
The queens,
obviously.
But I was too addicted to this play up here that I was like, no, I don't want to trade queens, even though it's game over.
So every move that offers a queen trade here is better than probably what you did. Like queen d4, offer the queen trade, right? Or play knight f3 first, and then bring the queen into f6 or d4. Or so I think that you're right that the mistake here was that you allowed yourself, really the only couple mistakes we made in the game were both kind of on that too cute sort of thing, which was to to play d5 or to not look for the queen trade. But I'm very encouraged by this. I mean, you are definitely a stronger player than even not just your initial rating, but I mean, to me, I'm looking, like you said, I think your experience and time pressure, and the fact that so you're going to be very comfortable online where maybe some players won't be as comfortable. I think you're gonna be fine, man.
Awesome.
And I really want to see what happens over the next couple of weeks with you playing the openings we talked about. Let's trying to check on my wife's demands for my time.
Yeah,
I think we can
go in a bit as well, but I could maybe play one more.
Okay, let's play one more. We're not going to have a lot of time to analyze it. It'll have to be very quick. But go ahead and play one more, and we'll see. Maybe you can get a game as as black. So I'm still following you. So go ahead and start another game as soon as you're ready.
Okay, let's do it. I might just play a shorter time control though.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Let's see. Let's do 5 minutes. And I'm white again.
Oh, that's okay. All right, 5 minutes. Be fun.
Okay. That's a problem. Yeah, that's
I think I was pretty good.
I mean, that was a very dumb move.
Yeah, obviously blundering the queen on h4, right?
Not helpful. Not helpful.
But after that, the reason I said he was pretty good, even though, objectively you were better at the opening, and I think you were a few moments away from maybe being winning here until you blundered with this knight e4 move. Oh wait, I need to invite you the analysis board real quick. I'm just gonna if you go back to live again.
Yeah, I think I'm in live this time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm in live. Yeah, got it.
Cool. So in this position here, obviously, you know, playing 94 was just a huge blunder, right?
Yeah.
But the efficiency with which he like cleaned that up, I mean, he was also playing super fast. So like he won the queen, he won the knight, he did every.
Yeah, it was good. It was good playing.
I mean, even like playing A5 is exactly the way you would just like ruthlessly open the position. So what I'm saying is he was obviously a good player. So don't be too frustrated. But but here, so everything you did was great right up to here. Like I have no advice.
G4,
dude. You just said the move. I was gonna try to give you a clue to play.
As soon as I moved the knight, I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking on that move, to be totally honest.
Dude, G4 is just like it's over, right?
Yeah.
And especially because he's essentially down 2 minor pieces compared to the pressure you have ensuing over here. I mean, obviously taking the pawn is a non-starter.
Yep.
And so what other moves does he have? You're taking here and taking here, right?
Yep.
And you know, F6 to attack the knight. That actually might be his best move.
Which is the move that I was stupidly responding to before I played mine. Like,
right.
Anyway.
Because what's funny is the really aggressive moves here are probably not the best move. If you take, he can actually take advantage of the pin. So against F6, and if you take here, he can take here. And even though it might be a big attack, he did just win a piece. So I wouldn't give up the knight. So after F6, probably your best move, you're right, is like a simple move like knight E4. And now once again, you're gonna take. You're going to play rook G1. You're going to play bishop H6. Like, you got it. So
over. I know. If I don't blunder the queen, it's game over. But anyway,
So there's not much to say on the you know, on that in a good way. All right, man. You know what we've done here is we've given some awesome like starting points and. Let's stay in touch. I'll DM you and on Twitter or we'll email and we can stay in touch because I want to see your games and give advice and maybe we'll have time to hook up for another lesson before the tournament.
That'd be
and obviously now that we know, I don't know if Austin has already kind of hooked you up on our end as far as like other streamers to do lessons with and things like that. Anybody would be happy to help. Alexandra Botez is going to be the one doing most of the commentary for the actual event and she's big into crypto. I'm not sure I'm allowed to leak, but so that I won't, but she may or may not be starting a podcast on the subject soon. I don't know. Anyway, so she's really into the event and like, that might be a fun thing to do. So let's stay in touch and I would keep you here, but you're on vacation. You probably, got some people waiting for you. I bet.
I'm just like, give me 1 second. Let me just check to see, what's going on because thankfully I brought my parents with me, so they've got my kids. So I'm
nice.
No one's here at the moment, so I might be able.
Dude, that is a genius vacation idea.
I know, right? I know. Yeah, I was. Let's see. Yeah, no one's bothering me, so maybe we'll try and play one more game. And
okay, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's play one more. All right, man. Yeah, that wasn't the best way to end it. I'm with you. Let's get a dub.
Yeah, let's see if we can actually.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll play one more 5-minute time control again. Let's see.
Okay, here we go. Rachel 987654. That's a lot of numbers. Okay, so this is a weird one, right? You can kind of think about it the same way we said the Philidor. I would, D4 early is the same response you would want to play in the Philidor.
getting a bit scary. Yeah, that's game over.
Oh man, you had it till you hung your brook.
I know. I just, lost concentration. Anyway,
I think now that I've seen you play, a few games, and obviously more than just I've seen enough now that we can draw like a pattern at times. And the truth is you're managing your time super well to the point where you should probably even slow down a little bit in the sense of like the thing about the position, if you go to the move 36, the thing about the position where you played B5 is it's not even that you played B5 and hung the rook, but you're up almost a minute on the clock, right?
Yeah.
You've got 2:26. He's got a minute 39, and I know it's hard. It's hard to get criticism, and you just lost a few games.
No. Trust me, I'm very comfortable with criticism. It was
okay.
Yeah,
good. I would assume so, but I always want to be just delivering in the most
I think my problem here was like, again, wanting to kind of rush it out and being frustrated that the knight was covering the pawn, not wanting to let the pawn on f4 get too much momentum, even though I had it covered, and I just was rushing and trying to get it up, trying to finish.
I'm gonna invite you to the board so we can look at it real quick. There it is. So Yeah, and on the note of that, like if we go to even, I just jumped to I literally clicked on a random position because I assumed it would be okay, and indeed it was. That the main plan you had at your disposal, and the main point of criticism I would have is like starting with moves in the early 20s. The most clear plan for you is to just push the H pawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were obviously, your king had been on the run. You were kind of distracted with tactics, and that ended up working out. You played knight c6, and then you won the rook. But even here, like the next best move, okay, you won the rook. It's time to push, right? Yeah. They played knight. You played 95 bishop d5 again. The best move, not even to take the pawn. Like forget the pawn, push, right? And so I was waiting till after the game to say that, one of the things about playing too fast at times, and this is again big picture advice, not just in this game, but apply to future games. When you're here, think about it, because what happens when you're playing too fast is you get in reactionary mode. So they make a move and you want to react. Like it's reacting to like that side of the board, that particular threat. While that doesn't necessarily always mean that that it's a bad. Sometimes your opponent makes a threat and you have to react and defend it, right? But you're sort of, when you're in knee-jerk reaction mode, especially when you have a clear plan that is like calling you to action, you should just go for it, right? And I think the overall consistent takeaway, whether it was before winning the rook or after winning the rook, is you never played for the most clear plan, right? You were consistently, every move you played was reacting to them.
And I got into this ridiculous position where
But this was okay, and you won this. You actually, I was hoping you would see it, but right here you took rook c7 is like winning on the spot. You would have won the knight.
Missed that too. Yeah.
But even so, it was still all good, all good. And then even to here, the knight's holding the pawn, but you slow down a little bit, right? I think that the other way to look at the situation with the rook is, yes, your pawn is stuck, but so is his pawn.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking like that. Yeah.
Right. One simple plan is just bring the king over.
Yeah.
And his king is frozen here.
Yeah.
So but again, don't take, and I say that not because, I mean, obviously you can handle criticism and you want it and all that stuff, but I'm saying like don't take it as it's only pinpointing this game, because like the best way to I can already see that there were several times where you were playing a little too fast, reacting to your opponent's moves instead of like what Jeremy Silman would always say, which is don't see ghosts. Just because your opponent plays a move, don't see a ghost that's not there, right? And I think that when you're in reaction mode and you're playing a little too fast, because you clearly play a lot of blitz and bullet, you probably play more blitz and bullet than anybody in the tournament. I'm just going to say that, knowing what I know about the players. So that's going to be your biggest strength, dude, when you come down to like time scrambles, if it's even. But it might hurt you if you play too fast in moments where, hey, you've earned that minute on the clock. You've earned the 2-3 minute time advantage. Slow down and use that time advantage, right? Because I think it's where you might be putting away some of these games, a little bit more efficient in the future. So,
agreed. And I mean, the big thing, I think, the last time that I tried to get a bit better and progress was stop making dumb mistakes. Right? Like stop blundering, right? Like, and I've got much better at slowing down at the right times and realizing like, hang on a second, this is not the board I was looking at 3 moves ago. Like if I just move something that I was thinking about moving, which is what happened, I was like, all right, I want to, try and put some pressure here, but yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Makes sense.
This is really fun. This is
amazing. All right, man. This has been awesome. Yeah. I mean, we'll call it a day now. And like I said, let's stay in touch and we'll keep it going, and then maybe we'll get into to another lesson later. Shout out to everybody who's with us. We got about 4,000 of you on both my channel and the chess channel, so thanks for being here.
Awesome.
And anyway, man, this has been awesome. So
thanks so much, Denny.
We'll just say goodbye to the fans together here, and while we're here, so remind everybody real quick the schedule. CryptoChamps coming up June 12th and 13th. We've got the format, which we've reminded everybody before. Again, these are 16 of the biggest players, thought leaders, and well-known people of the cryptocurrency world and space will be playing in an event on June 12th and 13th. And Mr. Kain Warwick will be one of them. And all right, thanks for being here, everybody. Kain, enjoy your vacation, man. We'll stay in touch.
Thanks. Talk soon. See you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.